Dolls have been a long source of entertainment for both children and adults. However, they can bring terror as well as joy. This is my list of the top 5 creepiest dolls. The doll that aged. The doll was loved by the young girl, but as with most toys and children's possessions, the doll was largely forgotten as the daughter grew out of it. Eventually the children moved out of the home, and the parents, rather than throw the toys and memories away, decided to store them in the attic. Although the doll can be well played with, it was still in rather good condition when it was placed in a box and forgotten about. About 11 years later, the family were having a clean out of the attic when they stumbled across a rather odd-looking doll. The doll was wrinkled, aged, like that of a very old person. The arms were stiff and mummified, wrinkles running along their length. It was when they recognized the clothing and other items in the box that their blood ran cold. It was their daughter's doll. Once baby-faced, it had now aged. There is a bit of debate as to how the doll aged. A few people, doll collectors and the like, say that the plastic or organic material had degraded, a kind of rot. However, many counter these claims with the fact that doll rot generally leaves a doll cracked, brittle, but not wrinkled like this. Those who take the paranormal stance in regard to this curiosity believe it possibly has an attachment. Maybe some entity has taken up residence from the doll, possibly way back when the daughter would still play with it. Or maybe they're still out there retaining their youth and beauty, well past their best before date, as the doll bears the burden of age. Letta, the gypsy doll. In 1972, Carrie Walton decided to face a childhood fear by visiting an abandoned building that has scarred him for years. While there, he discovered an old marionette underneath the porch. He decided to take it home with him, and he still owns it to this day. Some people believe that the doll was made 200 years ago by the Romanian gypsy for a son who had drowned. It is believed that the soul of the gypsy's son now lives in this doll. The doll is given the name Letta, or Letta, due to his European gypsy heritage. The doll moves on its own, changes positions while seated, and is said to emit a pulse while held. It has been known to rain whenever the doll is taken outside. Hanging pictures slide off the wall when the doll enters a room. The doll has real human hair. Underneath the scalp is the likeliness of a human brain. Animals often try to attack the doll whenever they come into contact with it. People have said they feel fear or sadness when they see the doll. Mandy. Made in England or Germany between 1910 and 1920. Mandy is a porcelain baby doll. She was owned for many years by a woman who claimed that she would hear the doll crying from the basement she was kept in the middle of the night. The woman later donated Mandy to the Quasnell Museum in British Columbia in 1991. At the museum, Mandy continues to cause mischief for the employees. People claim that lunches and other items often go missing. The items usually turn up elsewhere in the building. Footsteps are heard when nobody is around. The museum staff claims that Mandy couldn't be displayed with other dolls because she had a tendency to knock over other dolls or mess up the area she displayed in. For this reason, Mandy has her own display case, far away from the other dolls in the exhibit. Visitors to the museum say her eyes will blink or follow you whenever you walk. It is hard to photograph her, as she likes to mess with video or camera equipment. As a result, many pictures of her do not come out. Robert, the hunted doll. In the late 1800s, Thomas Otto and his family moved into a mansion at the corner of Eden and Simpson Street in Key West, Florida. The Ottos were known to be stern with their servants, sometimes even mistreating them. It was the treatment of one such Hayden servant that provides a twist in the story. This woman was hired to take care of their son, Robert. One day, Miss Otto supposedly witnessed her practicing black magic in their backyard and fired her. Before she left, the woman gave Robert a lifelike doll, which stood 3 feet tall, had buttons for eyes, human hair, and was filled with straw. Dolls that resembled children were not unheard of during this time, but this one proved to be special. Robert named the doll after himself, and often dressed it with his clothes. Robert, the doll, became his trustworthy companion. Soon this innocent relationship took on a strange nature. Soon after, Robert chose to be referred to by his middle name, Jean. After being scolded by his mother, he told her that Robert was the doll's name, not his. Jean was often heard in his toy room having conversations with Robert. Jean would say something in his childish manner, in response would be heard in a much lower voice. Sometimes Jean would become very agitated, worrying the servants and his mother. She would, on occasion, burst in and find her son cowering in the corner, while Robert sat perched on his chair or in the bed glaring at him. This was only the beginning. Household objects would be found thrown across the room. Jean's toys turned up mutilated, and giggling would be heard. With the recommendation of a great aunt, Jean's parents removed Robert from his care and placed him in a box in the attic. This is where he resided for many years. After the death of his father, Jean was willed from his boyhood home. He decided to live in the Victorian mansion with his new wife. He went to the attic, dusted off his childhood toy. He became attached to the doll despite his wife's displeasure. Jean would take the doll along with them everywhere they went. He even sat in his favorite little chair while Jean and his wife slept nearby. Robert supposedly attacked people, sometimes locking them in the attic. People who passed by claimed to hear evil laughter coming from the turret room. For some time, Robert remained in the empty house by himself until a new family purchased the mansion and restored it. The doll was once again moved to the attic. This pleased it as much as the last time. The doll was often found throughout the house. On a certain night, Robert was found at the foot of the owner's bed, giggling with a kitchen knife in hand. This was enough to send him fleeing from the home. Robert was later moved to the East Martello Museum in Key West, where he sits perched in his glass box. Despite his new living quarters, the doll is believed to not have given up his menacing ways. Visitors and employees claim that they've seen the doll move. His smile has been known to turn into a skull. To this day, Robert remains at the East Martello Museum in a sailor suit, clutching a stuffed lion, continuing his menacing ways. Annabelle. Annabelle was the focus of a case that famed paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren took part of during the early 1970s and is highlighted in the book The Demonologist and inspired the movie The Conjuring and Annabelle. It was stated that this is one of the most unusual cases of possessed object on record. This is Annabelle's story. Annabelle is a vintage Raggedy Ann doll purchased in 1970 by a mother for her daughter Donna's 28th birthday. The doll began to move around Donna's apartment and leave messages for her on parchment, which Donna did not own. Donna first contacted a medium about the doll, who told her it was inhabited by the spirit of a 7-year-old girl named Annabelle Higgins. After the doll tried to strangle and attack Donna's friend Lou, she turned to the Warren for help. The Warrens informed Donna that Annabelle was actually inhabited by inhuman demonic spirit. They then held an exorcism for the doll and removed it from her home. The exorcism did not take, though, and the Warrens' power steering and brakes failed during their drive home with the doll in the car. The Warrens had a special case built for the doll in their occult museum, since it escaped several locks in the first few weeks of their house. Of all the items in the museum, Sparrow claims that the doll is what he is most frightened of. Visitors of the museum who taunted the doll are all involved in near fatal or fatal accidents upon leaving the Warrens. Alright, and that's all for today. Let me know in the comments section if there's a particular topic you would like me to cover. Thanks for watching, and have a good one.